Let's take a look at another of our graphics. This map will put you in the picture. 35 Senate races at stake tonight. On this map, the states where races have been decided and the Democrats have won, that's in blue. Where the Republicans are known to have won, those are in red. The flashing ones are where we've had Republican turnovers, that is pickups of seats. And you will notice that among the places that are flashing, Maine, Ohio, Tennessee twice, 2 GOP pickups there, Oklahoma. These are the places where the Republicans have gained. Now, mark you that in the upper right-hand corner it says 13 Republicans. They've won 13 races overall so far. If and when that number gets to 20, bingo, the Republicans will control the Senate if it ever gets to that. They need to win 20 out of the 35 races as a whole that are at stake tonight. Joining us now from his office in Washington, D.C. is the Minority Leader of the United States Senate, Senator Bob Dole. Senator, thanks for being with us tonight. Obviously, a fairly big, at least a fairly big Republican tide in the Senate. First question, is this a resumption of what used to be called the emerging Republican majority?
Well, we can hope so. If we do have a majority, obviously we'll have the responsibility to make the change we think the American people want. We're not there yet. We need Arizona and Michigan to come in. If we sweep all the open seats, as you know, but Minnesota's another one, then it's 50-50, and we've already picked up both seats in Tennessee. That would give us a majority of 51 without Pennsylvania. So we're hoping to end up tonight with maybe 52, a little luck in California, maybe 53.
Senator, if the Republicans get control of the Senate, will you try to be the majority leader, or will you opt to run for president and let somebody else do that?
Well, I think you can probably do both. I haven't made a decision on 96. I think my primary responsibility has been out helping candidates all across the country to see if we can't put together a majority, not just in the Senate, but in the House, and pick up governor's races, gubernatorial seats. And I think we're doing it. We're not there yet, but I think we're going to make it.
Senator, obviously there's been a lot of anger and frustration out there, and Republicans have tailored their campaigns. Nothing wrong with that. Around that, how do you transform all that anger into something positive for the country?
Well, we've been in the process for the past several weeks at a staff level trying to work on a transition just in the event we do have a majority. Issues we might address that we think that American people are concerned about. I think number one is Congress. We'd have to make an example of Congress instead of being part of the problem. Secondly, I think there is, as your polls indicate, a lot of people out there do not support the Clinton agenda. And I think we have to make it very clear that where we can support the president, where we think he's right, he'll have our cooperation. Where we think he's wrong, he'll have our opposition. But we intend to work with the president. We only have one president at a time. It's President Clinton. And we're going to do the best we can. But before we can make all these plans work, we first have to have the majority.
Thank you very much, Senator Bob Dole, live from Washington, saying let's keep an eye on Arizona, Michigan, and Minnesota. We'll be back after these messages.
Tonight, Dave sends Jay Thomas.
Not there yet.
In the Senate races, 35 up. This is the way the map looks, all in red. The Republicans have won where it's flashing. The Republicans have picked up seats that formerly belonged to Democrats. In fact, they picked up 2, double trouble for the Democrats in Tennessee. Now we have another Mr. Map, as we call him, in the governor's races. This is the way the gubernatorial races look. There are 36 state houses at stake tonight. So far, the Republicans and the states in red have won 11. The Democrats, the states in blue, have won 4. Where it's flashing, there have been turnovers. The Republicans picking up governorships in the places where it's turned over. The other states, which are neither red nor blue, either the polls haven't closed or they don't have races. Our 60 Minutes correspondent, Easy Ed Bradley, is here to tell us what's happening with the governor's races and which ones we should keep our eyes on. What about Florida, Texas, and Georgia?
All of those are still close, Dan. The one we're keeping an eye on now is New York, where the polls closed just about 15 minutes ago, and where Governor Mario Cuomo was running for 4th consecutive term. As a result of our exit polling survey, we found that 62% of all of the voters think that Governor Cuomo has been in office too long, and 60% of the people who voted for his Republican opponent, George Pataki, voted against Governor Cuomo rather than for his candidate. And here in New York, the independent candidate Tom Colasano got Ross Perot's endorsement, but George Pataki got most of his voters, similar to what we're seeing in Texas, where Governor Ann Richards picked up the endorsement of Ross Perot, but George Bush got most of the vote there. We're seeing a tight race in Texas. We're also seeing a tight race in Florida, where Jeb Bush is running against Lawton Childs. There you see the graphic for Texas, where Bush got 52% of the Perot voters. We're also taking a close look at Florida. Jeb Bush is running a tough race head-to-head with Lawton Childs. So far tonight, Dan, the Republicans have picked up 4 seats. If they pick up 2 more, they will have the majority of state houses in this country.
Get back to you soon, Ed. A lot of good races out there, including that hot race in Florida. In Richmond, Virginia, CBS News correspondent Eric Ingberg is there. Eric, this race between North and Robb had them calling each other names, the likes of which one usually hears only on merchant ships or early in the wee hours of the morning on cable television. It went right down to the wire, did it not?
Yes, it did. You're right, Dan. Liar was one of the more modest terms that these two candidates applied to each other. I think there were 2 defining moments in this campaign. Oliver North was able to raise more money than any candidate for the United States Senate has ever raised in an election, something approaching $20 million. His bid was to offset all of the baggage that connects to his association with the Iran-Contra affair. But Senator John Warner, a Republican, stood up and said, I cannot support this man. He doesn't belong in the Senate. And that hurt North and brought back all the memories of 1986. Then, just 10 days ago, Nancy Reagan, wife of a president who is widely revered in this state, went on television from New York and said that Oliver North was a liar and had lied to her husband. There's evidence in the North campaign's own polls that hurt them badly in the closing days of the campaign, Dan.
Thank you very much. Michigan Senate race, Abraham, the Republican, wins. That's another pickup for the Republicans. Our CBS News estimate is that when all the votes are in and counted in Michigan, that the Republican, Spencer Abraham, will have beaten the challenge of Bob Carr, a 10-term congressman for whom Bill Clinton poured himself into this race. It was not to be. This is another pickup for the Republicans. So now the Republicans do have a net pickup of 6. They need a net pickup of 7 on the whole night, and they will control the U.S. Senate. Out there is that Arizona Senate race, which the Republicans expect to win, but they have not yet won that Arizona race. Now, 35 races for the United States Senate up tonight. The Republicans need to win 20 of them in order to claim the U.S. Senate. The states in red are where the Republicans have won. You will notice the states that are flashing in red are where the Republicans have picked up. They have now just picked up the Michigan Senate seat that did belong to the retiring Don Regal, a Democrat. So that state begins to flash now. The other states either don't have races or the polls have not yet closed in those races and we have no decision. This gives you, in a nutshell, where it is for the Republicans. They need a total of 20 wins. What they need is a net pickup of 7, and they now have a net pickup of 6 already on the evening. Let's go out to Lewis and Clark country, out in Washington. In Spokane, Washington, John Blackstone is covering the race of House Speaker Tom Foley. Foley, John Blackstone had his back to the wall, his shirt tail was on fire, and the bill collector was at the door. Is he winning the race or not?
Well, it's going to be a close one, Dan. We're sure of that. Now, the polls haven't even closed here yet, but already the Democrats can see lots of trouble. Now, Foley has been, as you say, his shirt tail to the wind. This is where he's won re-election for the past 30 years. But tonight, he could become the first speaker in more than a century to go down to defeat. That's significant because he's been re-elected here for 30 years now in this seat. He could be a major Democratic failure tonight.
Keeping in mind the polls haven't closed out there, people still have time to vote. Bob Schieffer, the polls haven't closed in the Senate race out there. Washington is one of those states the Democrats thought they might take a seat away from the Republicans. We'll just have to see. But things have been tumbling very quickly this hour. The Republicans, a net gain of 6 so far.
Well, that makes it more important than ever for the Democrats to win in Pennsylvania if they're going to hold on, because there's not many more places. For example, should they lose in California, Dianne Feinstein is favored. But it's getting down to where now the Democrats almost have to win every other close race if they're going to retain their majority.
And that Senate race in Pennsylvania is still really
very,
close.
very close.
Mm-hmm. Now, Bob, besides that, Where could the Democrats hold off this surge? The Republicans are up 6 in the Senate. We know very little about the House races so far, but the Republicans are up 6. If the Democrats are going to keep them from taking the United States Senate, where and how can they do it?
Well, just right there in Pennsylvania. They absolutely have to win Pennsylvania. We just had the Republicans win out in Michigan. They have to win in California, and they have to win, I think, out in Washington State.
Bob Schieffer. This is CBS News election coverage from CBS.
Competing for the United States, Paul Wiley, Christy Yamaguchi, Brian Boitano, and Nancy Kerrigan. Representing the world, Oksana Baidu, Kurt Browning, Katerina Witt, and Victor Petrenko. A dazzling competition. Ice Wars, the USA versus the world. Live Wednesday on CBS.